If you enjoy this series, then do let me know, tickle all the buttons, leave a comment, and congratulations to the person in the top pin comment. You won the free game from last week. Your comment was so normal. Now, things to look out for this time round. We've got a return of our avoid game at the end of the video, something that's trash that you should definitely avoid. We've got our indie spotlight, the hidden gem, and the Savaloy Selection. As always, if you want to save some money and support us, you can use switchup.gg to buy your eShop credit. Got some nice little games this week. What are the best sales? Well, let's find out. This episode is sponsored by Gamingo US and Cubic Games, who are collaborating on a campaign linked to the game Trove, which I absolutely loved and did a dedicated video on. This is a free-to-play MMO on the Nintendo Switch, and if you download that, you'll get access to a load of new discounts. It is worth mentioning that this is North America only, and you'll have to pick up Trove between May the 26th and June the 15th. And of course, if you already own it, then you're absolutely golden. There's an awesome new game called Johnny Trigger, which you'll be able to pick up for about $179. There's the pre-order for the Johnny Trigger Sniper game from the same developer, who, although they're a small team, are a cracking group. That's also the same price, and you'll have access to various discounts. A lot of their new bundles, like the best action games, 5 in 1 for just $3.99. A lovely little top-down roguelite, Mana Spark, at just 99 cents, and loads more. You can find the full list over at their website, cubicgames.com/Trove. Yeah, I spent a good time playing Trove, really enjoyed that one. So make sure you check that out, and a thanks to both of those for sponsoring this episode. Let's start off with the tactical turn-based Warhammer 40,000 Mechanicus. That is currently 80% off until June the 21st, which takes it down to £6.99 here in Blighty, which is an absolute bargain. Now, I haven't finished this one, but I've played a decent chunk of it, and it had a few performance issues at launch. It did receive a couple of patches. I don't know if it's perfect now, but I think it's probably good enough. And from what I know, there's around 50 missions here, as well as the DLC included. And it is very much an XCOM style tactical turn-based game. You have to place your units, decide exactly your strategy, and run headlong in and probably die and have to restart. Now, I'm a big fan of the genre, and I do enjoy the Warhammer adaptations. So at 80% off, I think that's well worth the price. You're looking at around about 30 to 40 hours of gameplay. It is single player only, so no multiplayer, and it clocks in at 4.8 gigs. Then, you lucky people in the US, if you haven't checked it out so far, you've got one of my favourites, which is Ashen, down 75% to $9.99. That's until June the 5th. What I will say is, if you are a physical collector, you can get this in other regions reduced at most good game shops. It's a Souls game, it has stamina-based combat, and it has some really nice boss fights. What it does well for me is in its ability to let you build up that town by finding new members, like the blacksmith and others. But it does still come with the same frustrations that Souls games have. If you don't like stamina-based combat, then you're not going to enjoy this. But I personally loved it, had a great time, and then moved on to the expansion DLC, which is usually on sale as well. The best deal this week for Tears of the Kingdom for us is Amazon, where you can get it for £44.99 via a £5 voucher, which you just click apply at checkout. That will take it down to £44.99, yeah, which isn't too bad at all, and includes free Prime delivery if you already have Prime, and if you don't, then I'm not even sure how that works anymore. In America, I'm afraid you're going to have to help me out with this one. I still see the best way of buying it using, well, what we had, which was on our switchup.gg. You could pre-order the game or buy the game and get double points, so double returns essentially. It's like double gold coins, and you'd still get your gold coins when you redeem your eShop credit or the game on the eShop. So yeah, that's probably the best way of getting it digitally. Let us know in the comments if you found a way in the US where it's a lot cheaper physically. One that you're going to have to be very quick for, or rather two, are the Guacamelee games. Guacamelee 1 and 2 are both on sale. They're 75% off each, and they're probably some of the best Metroidvanias we have on Switch. They managed to keep that kind of funny, almost Nacho Libre style humour, while having very compelling, fast-paced action gameplay. The mechanics you'd expect from a Metroidvania, but without a lot of the frustrations. I didn't find myself getting lost in these nearly as much as I do in some other Metroidvanias. And the best thing about them as well is that you can actually play through the entire games with 1 to 4 players in local co-op, which is almost unheard of in this genre, but it works really well. Both developed and published by Drinkbox Studios, and fitting into just over 2 gigs. Certainly ones to consider adding to that collection. The next US region exclusive is the Pathless. That's down 40% to its cheapest ever price at just over $20 until June the 5th. Now, we've got a full review of this one, and it's from the same creators as Abzu, if you remember that, the underwater adventure game. But this time, they took on a bit of criticism, I guess, and feedback, and made more of a game that still had that same flow and feeling to it. There are large towers that you have to go to where you solve problems. You can definitely see the inspiration here. And then it will triangulate a monster, and you go through through almost like monster hunting sections that are real-time action. It's really good. Once you clear the corruption from the land, it all goes nice and green and lush, and you move on to the next. You'll spend a lot of time gliding around in the air, and it's a very enjoyable title. Now, it's published by Annapurna Interactive and developed by Giant Squid. Fits into 1.8 gigs, and that's out, as I say, on until June the 5th. Next up, we've got Alan Wake at 40% off. If you haven't been keeping up, this one was patched about a month and a half ago. We revisited it in our All Patched Up series. Shameless plug, you should definitely check that out. I think we're one of the only channels to do that. And look, it still looks blurry, but the performance is so much better than it was. It's locked out now. It really does feel smooth, and performance is always king, especially in an action game where you have to shine the light on the enemies that gradually dissolves their defenses, and then you can do damage with that pistol. If you've not played Alan Wake in the past, then at least it's now playable and you can enjoy it on the Nintendo Switch. Just don't expect the biggest visual treat. Now, thankfully, the game's predominantly in dark, so that definitely helps. It's 12.9 gigs, single player only, and that's until June the 8th. Then we've got Wavetale, which we reviewed on the channel again quite some time ago, and it's down to its lowest ever price. It's another one of those flowy adventure games, you know? They're all about fast movement. This time you're skipping across the surface of the waves. There's a bit of combat in here. It's developed by Thunderful, so it gives you an insight as to the type of pedigree. They're an excellent developer, but the only critique with this one is it's just so incredibly short, at around 4 to 6 hours, depending on your pace. There are a few collectibles in here, like different hats and hair dyes, but it's the movement that is the real king or star of the show, I should say. You'll need 2.9 gigs to fit this one on, and that goes on until June the 8th. Then we've got the Swindle, which Glen recommended to me way back when it came out, all the way in 2018, when the Switch was a mere babe. Now it's a decrepit old man, but it can still play some absolute bangers, and the Swindle is no exception. Now it's 80% off, and it's set in London in 1849. As the title suggests, if you're English at least, swindle is a word for like stealing from someone if you're swindling something, and here you're taking on the role of a thief. You have to get in, steal everything, hopefully before the alarms and whatnot kick off. But the actual buildings, although the interior segments are like handcrafted, the layouts change each time that you play, and it adds a real sense of not panic, but you really do have to plan things out and then think about the escape routes. It's very fun though. Once you got it dialed and you've got the gameplay down, it's really enjoyable and certainly worth that ridiculous price. It's developed by Size 5 Games and published by Curve Digital. It's 1.1 gigs, and that sale goes on until June the 9th. Axiom Verge was a funny one. It kind of fits into the classic, the sequel's never as good as the first game. Terminator has entered the chat. But yeah, Axiom Verge 1 is definitely better than the sequel. It had much more mystery about it. The story was more nuanced. And in 2, it was just like, he was like, oh, here you go, this is what it's about. And for me, that's, I don't know. It's like showing the monster at the start of the film. It's just not a good idea. You've got to build suspense. It's not to say that their Axiom 2 is a bad game. It's not, but yeah, it's definitely not as good as the first one. Now, what are they? They are Metroidvanias with a pixel art style, but they are like at the pinpoint. They're the top of their game. The double pack bundle at the moment is 50% off. I believe if it's not here already, there's going to be a limited run that has both of them on. It might already be out, but it's in a large labyrinth style world for the first one. And then the sequel set on this weird planet that they've discovered. And yeah, again, you get a large open world map. Now, when it launched, it had a few bugs actually. I remember I finished it, but I did hit a couple of soft locks. It has had patches since then, and I'm sure it's absolutely fine in that regard. But for the two of them, who the games are made by a guy called Thomas Happ, by the way, I should have said that. I think combined they only fit into 753 megs, which is very impressive. And there's lots of secrets and different bits and bobs to find. So if you're a Metroidvania fan, you will really enjoy these. And that sale for the double pack goes on until June the 1st, so you haven't got a great deal of time. Something very different, and another one we've got a review of on the channel, is Mary Skelter 2. This is a bit of a bizarro dungeon crawler. It's a very famous series from Idea Factory and Compile Heart, and you play as the Blood Maidens, who are almost classes of their own. And I think it was Asdin that reviewed this for us. This is one I would certainly say to go and check out the full review, because quite frankly I haven't played it, but as he really enjoyed it, I'll go with his opinion. I remember thinking it looked completely ridiculous, but he assured me it was really fun. So yeah, we'll have to defer to Asdin for this one. I'll pop a link to that in the description. At 75% off, that is, I think, matching the cheapest it's ever been until June the 7th, and it fits into 10.4 gigs. Alright, time for the hidden gem. There might, to be honest, there's probably a few hidden gems after this, but I'd say this is the hidden gem, and it's Warhammer 40,000 Shooters, Blood and Teeth, which is quite possibly the greatest name of all time. This is a side-scrolling run-and-gun shooter in the Warhammer vein. I think they've probably covered every single genre now, and it's another of these that you can play in up to 4-player local co-op, and it is a whole lot of fun if you can get a group of you, or you can play it online in local co-op as well, which wouldn't be local co-op at all, it'll be online co-op. I'm losing my marbles. It's 2.2 gigs to download. It's not the longest, around 4 or 5 hours, but it is a side-scrolling shooter, like that's standard really, spread across several levels, and yeah, it's cheapest ever price, 30% off until June the 2nd. Then we've got our Indie Spotlight, which is a new series that I essentially stuck in last week, and some people seem to like it. If you didn't see it last week, we had The Falconeer, which is made by, is it Thomas Sala? And it's an excellent game. He's put loads of work into it, and that was on sale. It might even still be on sale. This week we've got Zell, which launched in an appalling state. Like, it was embarrassing, and I was really quite harsh to the game because I don't like it when that happens, and it happens too often these days. But Zell have been patching it non-stop since it came out, and I've revisited it many times. But in the EU regions at the moment, sorry US, not for you, it's 75% off, which is the cheapest it's ever been. And it's in a state now where you can enjoy it. There are still a couple of areas that lag, but for example, when it launched, there were texture glitches, there were things popping through the scenery, like it was a complete mess. Now it's quite enjoyable. It's got a large 3D world, a big map to work through. It all takes place from an isometric view. The combat's quite good. You've got a lock-on mechanic, a really nice soundtrack in there, and if you enjoyed the game, there is the DLC now, Break in Time. So yeah, bit of a redemption arc for sure. You'll see like the Metacritic is like 43% because no one goes back and reviews games. It's like a one and done, but that sale goes on until June the 23rd. I can hear the fanfare as we go into the Savaloy Selection before that avoid. This week we've got 4 games that are all priced less than you would pay for a UK Savaloy, which is an absolute bargain, and I do make sure they're games that aren't complete trash, otherwise it's pointless. You might as well have a Savaloy or 10. First up then, we've got Red's Kingdom, which is 75% off, which is the lowest it's ever been, and this is a little single player adventure from an isometric view that, my goodness, really did remind me of Little Big Adventure in terms of its style. And by the way, Little Big Adventure is being remade, and it is coming to the Switch, like remastered, which is just some glorious news for some other fans like myself. Now this is quite simplistic in its mechanics. It features a few little puzzles, a little bit of combat, and you'll unlock new abilities as you go on. Quite cute though, I like that. Fits into 443 megs, is developed by Cobra Mobile, and that sale goes on until June the 21st. Oh man, this next one is just ridiculously addictive. It's Mars Power Industries, which is only 75% off, and it's less than £1. And it's basically like 80 little puzzles set on Mars as a really simplistic art style, and you might look at that and think that doesn't, no, that's not going to work, but it's brilliant. You like making sure things have power. There's a good amount of strategy to it. There's a few eureka moments, but it's very compelling. Really does hook you in. Nice little loading game there if you want to just have something on your Switch to play every now and then before you decide if you really can go for another 7-hour session of Tears of the Kingdom. That fits into just 278 megs, but it should come with a public health warning. Then we got The Blind Prophet, which is a lovely little visual novel style point and click adventure, down 92% until June the 25th. And this one's literally only just come out, and we've been playing it. I think one of us will probably chat about it in the next interesting games video. But yeah, it's got a real nice style to it. It's pretty gritty though, I have to say. It's certainly not one for kids. You play as an apostle sent on a divine mission to liberate the city from the evil forces. You have the ability to essentially sense demonic corruption in an area, and you'll need to use that to then solve the different puzzles. It has a 90s style soundtrack, which I think you'll love. There are lots of different puzzles in there and mini games, as I say, and it's well worth it at that price. That's just a stupid price, really, especially when you consider it's normally £24, and that's the same on other platforms as well. As I say though, definitely not for kids. When editing this video, it's important to make sure we don't show some of the things that there would be on there, because yeah, even the trailer's pretty brutal in places. That's 978 megs, and that's until June the 25th. The penultimate one before we look at the Avoid game, here's Mugsters. Mugsters is published by Team 17 and Raincout Games, and it's a very difficult one to describe. It's almost like a sandbox adventure set on different islands, and there's some physics to it as well. You can ride all the vehicles, you can fly like rockets, cars, jeeps, planes, and you'll need to use them to solve the puzzles on each stage and rescue basically the humans, as there are aliens that have like trapped them all. It's very, very fun. It's completely bonkers. You may not know what you're doing half the time, but it's even better if you can get a partner and play local co-op. I also really like this art style. It really does pop off the screen, doesn't it? So yeah, a physics-based sandbox puzzler on weird, colourful islands that has co-op play and is a lot of fun. Anytime you have those kind of physics and co-op multiplayer, it's a recipe for success and disaster. That one goes on sale until June the 13th. All right then, the Avoid this week, and I saw it pop up and one of my kids was like, oh, can I get that? And I was like, no, you can't. And it's Popeye. Now, Popeye is the name of the sailor who likes spinach and has big biceps, but it's also the name of a terrible licensed game published by Saybeck, and it's just absolute trash. It puts itself down as like I mean, what's it targeting? Open world Mario, something like that? There's collectibles in there, you can jump around. It's just a clunky disaster. It's as if I got on a computer and tried to design a game, which, trust me, would be appalling. You move around a stage collecting hearts. I mean, surely it's going to be tins of spinach, and then randomly you'll have these ridiculous it's like a countdown at the bottom of the screen, and there's different like letters you're finding to. Oh, it's just terrible. Performance is janky, movement's terrible. It's no fun. It's just embarrassing, really, that Popeye the Sailor Man has fallen to this level. He sold his soul for a can of spinach. No, I'm not even going to say the download size. Don't buy it. That's too much time for Popeye. See you later. All right, so that's it for this week. As we always say, if you do want to support the channel and save some money, buy your eShop credit from switchup.gg, where you'll earn our little SwitchUp coins, giving you a percentage of your money back when you next want to use it. Thanks to our Patreons and to our members, and to all of you that enjoy the content, however janky it sometimes is. For all things Switch, all the time, keep it Switch up. Cheers, guys. See ya!